What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Think Different Theory. My name is Josh Forti. Oh, man, guys. I'm dead tired right now. I'm not even going to lie. Today's been a day. You ever have those days when you just don't know what to say? Like, you're like, yep, I got to do a podcast episode. Yep, I got to create content. What am I going to talk about today? That's how I'm feeling right now. And so I'm sitting here and I pull out my journal or my notebook and I'm brainstorming topic ideas. And I'm like, what would be a good topic to talk about? And I write down a couple. I was like, well, I could do a long overdue podcast about weed. Yeah, I'm definitely not in the mindset of that. And then I get to this point where as I'm writing them down, I'm like, I could just do a topic on how to create content when you just don't know what to say. And that's where we are right now. And that's what we've got. I really don't have any structure for this podcast episode. I did jot down a couple of notes about it and have a couple things that I do want to talk about this specifically. But as a content creator, especially as someone that I've done a lot of solo episodes, guys. Too many, actually. I need to get back to interviews. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But as someone that has done a lot of solo episodes here on the podcast recently and has done hundreds of Facebook Lives solo, it is hard to come up with that much content sometimes. I produce 3 podcast episodes every single week. It's like 150 podcast episodes a year. All right. It's a lot. On top of that, I'm doing coaching calls and Instagram stories and value videos. And I for sure create, 300 videos a year. Easy. At some point, you kind of run out of things to say, it feels like. But it's funny because when I'm out and about and I'm in my free time and I'm unwinding or I'm in a creative mode, I have endless amounts of topics. And I actually have a board where I write them down. I should have looked at that, actually. I'm just remembering. Anyway, but here's the thing, guys. When faced with this dilemma, and I'm curious, right? How many of you guys, we've all had it, right? Where you sit down and you're like, I got to create content, but I just do not know what to say. And you kind of rack your brain and you're not sure. That's what we're talking about here, okay? Guys, the starting point of content. I don't even want to say the starting point of content. The starting point of building an audience. Building connection with your fans, with your listeners, with your viewers, with your readers, whatever it is. The starting point of building a movement around your message, and really just your message in general, is connecting with your fans and being real and being authentic. Like, people don't want to follow you if they don't think you're real, right? They don't think you're human. They want to know you're human. They want to, especially in today's world where the BS meters are so high, people just want to see you, right? They want to know you. I did a podcast episode recently with Dave Woodward. We were talking about this, actually. I was on his show. The episode is airing in August, I think. We're going to air it on my show as well, which is going to be super fun. And you can tell this is a much more relaxed episode. Can you tell I'm leaning back in the chair? I got my mic here. But one of the things that we were talking about was this journey of creating content and publishing and being open and being vulnerable and connecting with fans and creating content around things. And I was talking about Logan Paul. He asked me a question. I was like, all right, I got to bring context around this. Logan Paul. Many of you guys know Logan Paul. If you don't, he's a big, massive YouTuber. I used to be a huge fan of his. I still follow him to a certain extent, but he's gotten a lot of crap that he's brought in, porn stars and a bunch of other stuff. So I just it's not my thing at all. It goes against what I believe. So anyway, but my purpose in saying this is that, and the purpose that I was talking about with Dave was here's a guy, he's done 200 podcast episodes, right? And you have watched his journey, all right? The reason people love Logan Paul, the reason people have latched on to him, right, is because you have watched this guy go from kid, nobody, Vine person, to having 1 subscriber on YouTube to 20 million, being the fastest growing YouTuber of all time, really redefining what it means to be a vlogger, or really just defining what it means to be a vlogger, making it big, being at the top of the world, to overnight having everybody hate him. And if you guys don't know what the Suicide Forest Japanese thing that he posted a vlog of a dead body hanging in Suicide Forest. It was a bad, stupid decision. Overnight, the whole world hates him, right? He goes from top of the top, millions and millions of views every single day, 7 days a week. He's getting like 5, 6, 7, 8 million views. Hundreds of thousands of dollars he's making every single day, right? Top of the world. And overnight, within a matter of 24 hours, everybody in the world hates him. So you watch him go from the top of the top to the bottom of the bottom, and you're like, whoa. And most people do not make it through that. And you watch Logan Paul have to reinvent himself and reinvent himself and reinvent himself. And you watched him be open and vulnerable, and you watched him go through his struggles, and you watched him and he shows up on his podcast now, and part of the time he goes in and his hair is, hold on, pardon my messy hair, but he'll start the podcast and he'll be like literally looking like this, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm super hungover right now, right? He's just this very open, very authentic, real version of himself. And that's why people watch. That's why people connect. But you know how okay with yourself you have to be when you don't know what to say, or when you talk about things that are not what normal people would talk about, or when you talk about things that are uncomfortable, or when you just show up and are yourself, when you share your struggles, when you get really real, when you get open, vulnerable, and authentic. Like, you got to be okay with yourself, right? But when you do that, that brings connection with your people. When you do that, people listen. They feel like they're your friend, because what do you do when friends? You're there for them, right? You see them at the highs, you see them at the lows. You really have this connection with them, especially people like you feel are human, and especially people that you feel that are human, that are on a similar journey that you are. And when you watch someone, I've been told this many, many times from people, Josh, I love watching you grow. Do you know how you watch someone grow? You can only watch someone grow if that person shows growth. And that means sharing the parts of you that were bad at one point. Or maybe not bad, but like that you grew in, that you struggled with. Sharing your struggles. Like, guys, right now, so my team right now, and a perfect example of this, I'm going to be real with you right now. I'm going through some changes in my life and in my business, right? I'm getting ready to move. Hold on. Sorry, my cord is all messed up here. I'm getting ready to move. I just had a huge launch. And one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about, and thankfully Steve Larson did talk about this when he went through some big launches, is that when you have a big launch, your problems pre-big launch are radically different than your problems post-big launch. Systems break post-launch. You start to realize, whoa, when you have a flood, hundreds of new customers come in, and you're not quite ready for that. And you've got an influx of responsibilities, and you've got an influx of customer support, and you've got an influx of problems, and you've got an influx of customers wanting to pay you money, clients wanting to pay you money. It sounds like, oh yeah, Josh, that's such a hard problem to have. If you've never dealt with it, and you've got clients that have paid you $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, and you're like, how do I deal? Oh my gosh, so much attention, right? And you haven't had a team really be involved all that before, and you've kind of done everything yourself, and now all of a sudden you need the team, but you don't know how to, I don't know how to lead a team. Like, what? I'm learning all this stuff. Customer service requests come in, an influx of cash. Whoa, all of a sudden I've got more money sitting in the bank than I ever had before. What do I do with it? Where do I have to put it, right? Oh, I've got to hire a new coach. I've got to pay them. Oh, we need another person here. Oh, wow. I just blew $5,000 over here on this thing that I thought was going to work, but didn't. But the reason it didn't work is because my attention was too much over here. And like all these different things start happening. And so that's one of the things I'm dealing with right now. And one of the things that we've done, and keep in mind, these are great problems to have. I'm not complaining at all. But it's a overwhelm, shock. I went kind of into shutdown mode for a couple of days. In fact, I sent I can't read you all the message, but I want to read you a part of this, because when you go through these things, you need to identify that you're going through them and be like, oh, that's happening. I need to fix it, right? And if you can identify them and identify what's happening when you start to feel yourself getting uneasy or shifting or shutting down or going through stuff, if you can identify it, then you can isolate it, and then you can deal with the issues. But the problem is when you've got 1 or 2 issues coming in, right? Then you can deal with those pretty quickly. But when you've got 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, and all of a sudden your customer support people that used to have 1 or 2 and you used to have 3 or 4, and they've got 10 or 15 and they're not used to it, and I've got 50 and I'm not used to it, and all the teams are kind of stressed out, but they're looking to you for leadership. It's like, whoa. So you've got to learn to isolate big problems and be like, okay, that's an issue. Here's when we're going to solve it. Okay. And you kind of go through, and I had to shift my roles from a person that was doing things like identify problem and solve problem to identify problem, isolate problem, figure out a plan, but I'm not the one solving them anymore. It's, hey, Carrie, do that, and this, Melanie, this, Lewis, I'm a delegator now. It's this weird, I don't know, it's been this weird transition. Anyway, my point in saying all that was, you go through stuff. Let me read you this message that I sent to Carrie during this time. Okay. With growth comes pain. And that's not a bad thing. We talked about that. It is just what it is. And if you can identify those things and give yourself room to grow in them, it can turn into something very beautiful. Here's part of the message I sent to my operations manager. I said, okay, Carrie, I'm going to vent to you. I'm not mad at you in any way. I just need to vent, because if I vent, then I know you can help me better. And then we can identify the problems, and you can help me figure out how to best figure these things out. Right now, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. When I feel overwhelmed, I shut down and go into block everyone else out and just do it myself mode, which isn't the right thing to do. I'm fighting it and pushing through. Basically, I feel like I'm behind and that I'm underutilizing the team. Okay. So right there, you see in this message, I'm like, okay, I identify what is going on, right? I don't know how to deal with it. I'm learning. I'm trying to figure this whole thing out, right? But like, I don't know how yet. So like, let me identify that and realize that's an issue, and let me make sure that doesn't happen, because I know what I shouldn't do. I know that I shouldn't shut down and go into do it all myself mode. It's impossible. I can't keep up. I've got to utilize the team. But oh my gosh, I don't know how to utilize the team at full capacity yet, right? So I need your help, Carrie. How can I utilize you better? I need my help, your help over here, Ann. How can I utilize you better? I need help, Katie. How do I utilize my team better? Who do I need to be right now in order to utilize these things better? Okay? That's what I'm dealing with. And so I say all of that to go all the way back. Let's bring this full circle. Let me be honest with you guys. Right now, one of the things that we're doing is scheduling out content ahead of time. All right? We used to have all these episodes stream 100% live. Like they were actually live. It just became too much. Not because I couldn't keep up with it. Well, actually, that's probably actually one of the bigger reasons. But like, I was willing to try to push through, but my content team can't be on standby 24/7 and turn episodes around in 10 minutes, right? This is not realistic. Not with my budget. I don't have millions of dollars to spend on this show, right? We don't have a big enough listening audience yet to make it profitable to where I can have a person in-house yet, right? I'm facing my own problems. So I was like, okay, we've got to batch this out. But even then, there was this process of where I wanted to keep it relatively live. And we've gotten to the point where we're having to create some content ahead of time. And not even just for the live show, but like for ads that we're doing and content that we're creating for our students and content for programs, all these different things. And I'm used to doing everything last minute. I'm going to be honest with you. Right now, I've got this book in front of me, this list of content that I need to create. And I don't know what to say on some of them, right? I don't know what to do on some of them. And I've got to go figure that out. And that's how this episode came about. Because one of the things on my list was, Josh, you need to go record 3 podcast episodes for next week. And I'm like, my brain is fried. So what do you do? How do you create content? What do you say when you don't know what to say? That's what you say. You say that you don't know what to say. You start there. You start with the story. Because let me tell you something, guys. I have coached a lot of people on content. I have coached a lot of people on social media. It is my game. It's what I do. Okay? One of the biggest things across the board, like if you're like, Josh, top 3 things that you hear from people that are struggling with social media and creating content specifically. Top 3 in every single list that I would make is people struggle with creating content because they don't know what to say. Everybody has that issue. So do you think that might be a good, relatable podcast topic to talk about? Yeah, because everybody struggles with it. And guess what? If you're struggling with it, it makes you relatable. Makes you real. I'm being real with you right now. I'm just telling you what I'm going through, right? It doesn't mean the quality of my content is going to be any less. It just means that this is the type of content that I'm putting out right now. And what's interesting is, I think that's another thing, is like people think that all your content has to be like perfectly polished and perfectly done, and you got to follow this framework. We always want to look for the frameworks, right? Hey, Steve Larson, how do you produce your podcast episodes? What's the framework outline of your content? Hey, Russell. Hey, Joe Rogan. Hey, Tom Bilyeu. Hey, Ty Lopez. Hey, whatever. Hey, Gary. Hey, Josh, how do you create content? Like, don't get me wrong. I have frameworks for creating content. And when I want to teach a lesson about something, I want to communicate something across, I follow those. But that doesn't mean I have to follow it every single time. Because guess what? Are you the same human in all areas of your life? No, you're different. There's variations, okay? The podcast is going to be different. The show is going to be different. The content that you're going to create is going to be different sometimes. And right now, if you can't tell, this is a pretty chill, relaxed, laid back, authentic, real, unscripted episode. It's not how I do all my episodes. But this type of episode completes me as a person, meaning it shows you a bigger picture of me, right? All I did was produce high quality, highly edited, perfectly published episodes, like a lot of podcasters do at times. Are you going to get to know me? No. You might get to know the content really well, and I'm not bashing that necessarily, but you're not going to build a movement around you and your message that way. You might, let's say you were teaching how to set up Facebook as a bad topic for podcasts. Let's say you were teaching, I don't know, you're storytelling, right? I don't even know what podcasts are about. I don't really listen to podcasts except for like mindset ones. Let's do that. Let's do a mindset podcast, okay? So let's pretend that there was a podcast about the mind and the brain and how it worked, okay? If every single episode that person did about it was just telling you facts and information about the brain and the mind and how it worked and how to reprogram and all those different things, that might be a very informative podcast. But I would bet you that you're not going to build a movement around that. Why? Because they're all polished and edited, and you're not showing the character flaws and the realness of the person doing it. But if I were to create one of those podcasts, and which I kind of have one, it's called Think Different Theory. In case if you've never listened to it, you should check it out and subscribe on iTunes. Number one podcast in the world. We're the number one podcast, mindset podcast in the entire world, guys. You should check us out. ThinkDifferentTheory.com/listen. Anyway, leave us a rating and a review. But if I were to go do that, right? And I were to talk about the mind and teach about the mind and teach that same information, but I would have good days and bad days, and I would share my stories with you and show up really powerfully one day and kind of a little bit like this the other day. Guess what that does is it builds a connection with you, or with me. I'm building a connection with you, and you're building a connection with me. And what does that do? That creates loyalty. That creates trust. It's a fundamental difference between knowing a lot of facts and information and presenting those and actually building a real, genuine connection and trust with your audience, okay? When people know you struggle, people realize you grow. That's why people know that I've grown, because people have watched me struggle. People have watched me go through. Guys, I started Think Different Theory podcast 2 months before my brother died in a helicopter crash in Kenya, leaving a 5-year-old son behind, a wife, and a baby on the way. And I still did 3 podcast episodes every single week that year. Do you think that maybe people saw some growth? I sold a company that year, or my half and share in it. Do you think that maybe people saw some growth and change? I sold the company to go travel the world, booked a 4-month world trip with my girlfriend around the world, only to get halfway around the world into a third world country in the middle of nowhere, have my girlfriend get an intestinal eating parasite that canceled our trip 2 months early. I was supposed to go skydiving in Dubai. Didn't get to do that. Was supposed to go to Greece and Paris and didn't get to do any of that. I had plans for this, and I had to deal with all that. Do you think people saw me grow? Yeah. Why? Because I was real about it. Because I shared my struggles about it. Because I talked about it. I taught, produced a lot of good content through it, but I shared my struggles. I shared what I went through. If you're struggling to create content, guys, share what you're going through. Tell a story of what you went through that day. What's going on in your life? How can you relate to people? How can people connect? And how can you tie it back to that message or to your message? That's how you build loyalty. That's how you build trust. Right? This is a very educational podcast. A lot of solo episodes recently, right? We're going to get back to, and once again, I've wanted to get back to, how many times have I said, perfect example of this. How many times, if you're a listener to the podcast, have I said, man, I really want to get back to interviews? We even had a couple on. Why aren't we back there yet? Because I'm still dealing with stuff. I'm still building my business, right? I got to get back to a point where I can have that luxury, right? And so, are things moving as fast as I want? Nope. Do you know that? Yeah. But if I were to tell you, we're going to get back to interviews again, and then 6 months goes by and we don't do interviews anymore, you're going to be like, so Josh, are you a liar or what? Right? Or if we just started to interview 6 months later, be like, man, he said that 6 months ago. It's about time. But if during that 6 months, I tell you, man, we're coming, they're coming, they really are, but we got to fix this over here first. What am I doing? I'm giving context. I'm building trust. I'm showing you what's going on. I'm showing you that I'm real. You're seeing growth. So yeah, that's today's podcast. One of probably the hardest part about any podcast episode is just starting. I had no idea what I was going to talk about on today's podcast episode, guys. I didn't. And here we are. I had no idea I was going to say any of this stuff. I didn't know I was going to use those stories. I certainly didn't know I was going to read you off that message that I wrote to Carrie. But I was like, you know what? Here's what I want to do. I want to open it up. I want to be open and honest. And I want to show people that when you're open and honest, you can build connection with your fans. You can go out there. I'm not saying every episode can be like this. In case you haven't noticed, not every episode's like this, right? A lot of them are very thought through. But if you're living, like I strive to live and be the truest version of myself all the time. And that includes on podcast episodes. I've asked my coach Katie the other day and I was like, Katie, I have mood swings. I have good days and bad days. And sometimes it's hard to record a podcast episode when I'm low energy. But you know what? I've found that when I record them when I'm low energy, some of them are some really, really good episodes because I'm not so polished and I'm not so on edge. She's like, oh, interesting, Huh. And so that's what I'm doing here. Other episodes, highly polished, highly done. That completes a character. That shows a full picture. That shows you're a well-rounded individual. That's what gets people to trust you. And that's kind of what Think Different Theory is all about, or Thinking Different is all about. All right, guys. I'm going to start saying this more. I'm going to wrap it up here, but I want to start saying this more in my content. We are free thinkers. Being a free thinker means to be free in all areas of life. That's financial freedom, time freedom, spiritual freedom, and mental freedom. We teach 3 of those, not spiritual yet. We'll get there eventually. That's what it means to be a free thinker. Guys, I want to give you permission to fail. I want to give you permission to go out there and try something new. And I want you to go out there and give you permission to start a podcast or a Facebook group and start creating content and have failure not be in your vocabulary. Because quite frankly, when it comes to creating content, no one episode is going to ruin your show. You could have literally the worst episode of your life and in your own eyes, and it's not going to ruin your show. It's just not. In fact, it might actually help it. Flip the script in perspective. Okay? Give yourself permission to go out there and just be open and be vulnerable and understand that you're talking to real humans. I'm a real human. You're a real human. Your listeners are real humans. We all have real human struggles. And you know what? Financially, you and Russell Brunson, probably not on the same struggle. Me and Russell Brunson, probably not on the same struggle, right? Russell Brunson probably ain't worrying about money too much, right? But there's only so many ranges of emotion that a human can feel. And I will tell you that some of the struggles that you're going through right now, Russell Brunson is too. And so am I. And so is whoever you look up to. And so is, Grant Cardone. I don't know about Donald Trump. He seems kind of like an alien. I don't know how he deals with it. But he's human too. So he's dealing with them too. Okay? Be real. Be open and vulnerable. Be yourself. And talk about your struggles. Just talk about what you're going through. In fact, I think it'd be dope to do a podcast episode. Honestly, honestly, creating content is so hard alone. It is not easy to create content by yourself. Like, it's so much easier when you have someone there with you. You can like banter back and forth with. I'm moving to Denver. Actually, I'm not moving to Denver. I'm moving outside of Denver. I'm moving close to Denver. J.R. Rivas is moving there. Joel Kaplan's out there. I think it'd be dope to do a show with me and JR. JR is a black entrepreneur. I'm a white entrepreneur. He's like not into politics and religion at all. I am into politics and religion a lot. I think it just make for, and we're really good friends, right? I think it'd be a great thing. It'd be way easier to create content because you can get on there and be like, "Sup, JR?" Be like, "Sup, Josh?" Be like, "I don't know what we're gonna talk about today." JR be like, "Donald Trump is a racist. Prove me wrong." That's, you know what I'm saying? It's a two-way conversation. When you're a solo act, you got to basically create that conversation. Anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap it up with that. I'm trying to be, like, if you can't tell recently, guys, I'm just trying to be more real with you. I'm just trying to show myself. I'm trying to build this connection with you. I want fans, but I want you to know me. I want to know you. Like, I want to get to know, like, I want this show to be real. I'm not trying to just teach you how to set up a Facebook group. I'm trying to teach you how to be the realest version of yourself. And the only way I can teach you to be the realest version of yourself is if I'm the realest version of me. And that's what I'm trying to be, all right? We're not going to just teach business all the time. We're going to branch out. We're going to talk about some cool stuff. I can't wait to talk about, what we do we get the Jeep back. I can't wait to have that Jeep in Colorado. Jeep Wrangler. For those of you that are wondering, Jeep Wrangler specifications, and I've had so many people ask me about it. So I'm going to end with this, all right? I bought a Jeep Wrangler 2020 JL Jeep Wrangler 4-door Stingray. It's beautiful. 3.5-inch lift kit, 35-inch tires, mud tires. They're sick looking. People ask me, "Josh, why do I want to go with mud tires? Josh, they're going to be so loud. You're not going to like it, blah, 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 blah." I want to look cool. I own a Jeep. I'm going to look awesome. And I'm going to Colorado. We're going to go rock climb or crawling. We're going to go off-roading. I want it to look sweet. 35-inch tires, 17.5-inch Fuel rims is the brand, Fuel, and they're black. 35 inches, 3.5-inch lift kit, so it'll raise the Jeep 5.5 inches up higher than it was stock. So essentially a 5.5-inch lift kit on it when it's all said and done. We get that back. We're going to have that in Colorado. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. Hang out with me over on Instagram at JoshForti, JOSHF as in Frank, ORTI, my first name, my last name, or in my Facebook group, Wildly Profitable Audiences. We'd love to have you over there. Instagram, content that I post on there, kind of businessy, kind of reflection of me and my business mindset and state of things. Instagram stories, though, that's behind the scenes of my life. Facebook group, super audience growth and things related. Podcast, well, you know the podcast you're listening. Please leave us a rating and review on iTunes. 5 stars would be preferred, unless it's not worthy of a 5-star review. Then leave whatever it is, but leave a comment, rating, and review on there. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe button, follow button, like button, whatever it is, and leave a comment down below. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Don't be afraid to be a free thinker. Actually, be a free thinker. That's what's going to get you what you want in life. As always, also, God bless. Do not be afraid to think different, because those of us that think different are going to be the ones that change the world and create our own reality. I love you all, and I will see you on the next podcast episode. Take it easy, fam. Peace. Yo, what's up, guys? You've been listening to the Think Different Theory with myself, Josh Forti, which I like to call a new paradigm of thinking. And real quick, I got a question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message of positivity and making the world a better place is if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this is out on that you like my stuff and that I'm doing something right. So if you could take like 3 seconds out of your day and subscribe, leave a rating and a review, I would be forever grateful for you. Also, I want to hear from you. I want to know your feedback, your ideas, and your questions for future episodes. So be sure to hit me up on Instagram in the DM at Josh Forti or via email contact@thinkdifferenttheory.com.